command control. I'm gonna sound off. On a revolution with the breath of my lungs. Sound off. Sound off.
What's up, everybody? How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Awesome. Well,
Good.
how are the watchers? How are you guys doing tonight? I know I can't hear you and your response back, but it's so happy. We're so happy to be back. We got some different faces around this time. Johnny, he missed last week or the last time because he was sick. And we have a special guest tonight. We have Andre, and we're going to be introducing him. But tonight we are going into part 2 of woke Christianity and what that really means, and then I'm gonna share a little bit about that. But tonight we're going into a really heavy topic that we didn't cover on the last show, which is critical race theory, Black Lives Matter, all the other topics that we talked about. That is definitely a little bit more fringe within Christianity and within Christian music world. There's a little bit more fringe, but we definitely showed how, many of those people in those areas, they are walking down that path of, what we said, Roe versus Wade, LGBTQ, all of those different things. But tonight, this one hits a little bit different because, race and racism, obviously these are biblical concepts that are to be utterly destroyed and thrown out because they have no place amongst the body of Christ, right? And so how does this really fit? With should we be involved in protesting? Should we be looking at that? So we're going to be covering all of these specific things tonight on Sound Off. So Doug, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest tonight? This is your good friend, so you go for it.
Well, you know him from the movie Friday. I mean, I'm just joking.
Debo's dead.
I know Debo died. This is my. This would be, I guess, my brother from another mother. We've been friends for 34 years.
Wow.
Longer. Grew up in the Christian music scene, grew up hanging out, going to shows, going to church, youth group. Life has taken definite different turns for us, but he still remains one of my bestie. This is Andre Price.
Well, thank you so much. And he's also good friends with Jeremiah Dirt as well. So everybody knows Dirt here. So we're gonna have a blast. So I think there's so much to get to. Robbie is traveling right now, so you probably can hear him. He wanted to be here, but he was on a little trip to forget where you were going, Robbie, but you had to be here, of course. So he is doing this from his car, so he's going to chime in on the cell phone. And Michael Solomon was supposed to be here tonight. He's running behind, but he may show up still, is what he just said. And Elijah is out tonight with work, and Josh is dealing with the kids again tonight. So, but we've got a lot of talking heads tonight, so you guys are going to get a earful. And when we have to censor Robbie, just put it in the comments and let us know so that we can censor him, because he cannot see the chat tonight. So.
You guys are safe tonight. I can't multitask very well, so while I'm driving, I probably won't be talking too much. So we'll see.
Yeah, right.
Robbie, we got that in common.
Well, let's jump right in. So like I said, this topic right here, like I said, I think it's the most controversial within this term woke Christianity. What I mean by woke Christianity is Christians that believe these liberal ideologies, right? They adapt these liberal ideologies. They bring them into, whether it be churches, their organizations, their music, their platforms, these types of things. And this one really was a game changer, and it set us back quite a bit. Can we do this? Can we say that? How should we think about this? All these things started to come up that, I think, and from my opinion, a lot of these things have died off, especially within the diversity within the world over the last X amount of years, and now it came back hitting hard. So, let's just jump into this. We're going to talk about first. We're going to let the listener know, if you're not familiar, Black Lives Matter, the organization, versus Black Lives Matter, the movement. So, if somebody wants to explain what the first one is, Black Lives Matter, the organization, and then we could talk about what the movement is and what actually has, if there's any truth to it, if there's anything behind it. Let's just jump right in. And who wants to go first?
Actually, before we go there, I think we need to go back a little bit to like where critical theory actually came from.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I went to college in my later years and they couldn't brainwash me. So part of my learning was about Marxism being that of something great. So this kind of goes back to 1923 within the Institute for Social Research at the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory. There's an actual school for critical theory. Now, there's 5 power structures to critical theory. One is the power structures are created by powerful people to privilege themselves, which is a form of abuse and injustice. Systematic oppression, this is number 2, systematic oppression through often invisible like demons that are inherent bias and prejudice built into every system by those in power to systematically oppress those without power. They like to critique. The critique is number 3. It is good and right to find the flaws and problems in all systems of thought as well as institutions, not unlike God. Who this is a Christian view. This is something that I helped write. Not unlike God, who knows our sin and names it. So number 4, justice, where most of this is coming from right now, and that's where BLM will come in. It is righteous to demonstrate oppressive ideas and structures and to redistribute power and wealth for equality. Examples include eradicating private property ownership, redistribution of wealth through reparations or tax benefits, or attacking businesses that have benefited from systematic oppression, which explains the rioting, looting that is cheered as justice instead of jeered as injustice. And then final, number 5, government, which is the government replaces God as the sovereign authority to begin to bring justice, protect peace, and provide for those needs of people who have been oppressed. So it's a counterfeit kingdom of God, which is what the government is pretty much considered. If you look at Luke 4:18-21. So I just thought that that would clear up a little bit, but does anybody have the actual tenets of BLM?
I don't.
No?
Well, what were you trying to say? I know my viewpoint on BLM, I call the organization, I call it BS, because where were you? I was just talking with the owner of the semi truck that I drive when I was on my way here. I was trying to get the key. That's why I was a little late. And I just told him that the movement pops up during 2020, during the Trump and Biden, the election. And I think even before that. And it's like, they were trying to build something up, and with this agenda to, I don't know, make police look bad, make, Trump supporters look bad. And it's like, where were you years ago? Let's say 20 years ago. Let's go back that far, when the police were beating the hell out of black folk. You know, when there was issues going on that, I'm like, where are you guys at now? Well, back then. And it's like, now now the election's done. Do you even hear about them? I'm part of a BLM on my Facebook. At first, for some time there was stuff going on and they were posting things. Then next thing you know, it's like crickets. It's like, really? It's like, where's the movement at? Then I remember kind of getting into it with a female, like, we need to be, as black folk, we need to stop this black on black crime. And she thought I was some, like, weirdo. It's like, oh no, BL. I'm like, our focus needs to be, if it's a BLM for us black folk, we need to have BLM towards each other, because it's not there. If you look at the deaths every weekend, and from just black on black crime, Doug and I, my good buddy there, taught me to get to where I'm at now, where I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna drop back and let me do some research on this, and let's come up with a solution. So that's what I would do with people. I bring that up with the BLM, like, okay, what's the solution? What's the let's do some research, because I used to be an emotional person. When people were getting shot and killed by police, black folks were getting shot, and I'm like, blatant things. And it's like Doug would always say, Dre, drop back, do some research on it. I do research, come to find out this is the situation, that's the situation. So back to the organization, you don't even hear anything about them. I mean, I know on my end, it's like, I drive a semi truck now, so I'm on the road a lot, and it's like, I don't have access to like I used to be with Facebook and stuff, or social media. But even what I do see, I don't hear anything, unless you guys do hear things from BLM, the organization. Yeah, let me know.
Johnny,
and I hear from them every weekend, so that's
Well, what I could say is, we're going to hear so much more, right? There's the Candace Owens documentary is about to drop, and what has come out of where people are distrusting the Black Lives Matter organization has come from all of their the tax forms being revealed, and all of the homes, the mansions, all these things being purchased, and none of the money going to the different chapters. And this is all coming out, and it's all going to be revealed in that soon coming documentary called George Floyd, The Greatest Lie Ever Told: The Rise of BLM. So that is going to be coming. So why you're not hearing so much about them, I believe right now, is because everything coming out is negative. There isn't anything positive within that organization. And as Robbie or Johnny can maybe go a little deeper into, is that they are trained Marxist, they're socialist, is 100% organization. Robbie, do you want to share on that?
He's gone for the next 15. He'll be back though.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, John.
What I love about a lot of this, though, in any conversations that we have, is that I always come at it as as a learning opportunity, and I want to learn more. And being a white guy in Canada, we don't see it, I think, as much as maybe what happens down in the States. And this could just be my white ignorance. But I mean, the first thing, Andre, that you had said was you're tired of the black on black crime. Now, does that happen, though, because it's in predominantly black neighborhoods where there's predominantly black people? So that's why you would see that black on black crime, where if it was somebody, if there's more of white and black together, you may see more of a mix of that.
Yeah, I do agree with that. It's like, but it's what the media puts out there.
Sure.
The media, the media feeds off that. Like I tell people, the most sensitive subject in this country is black and white. It's not black and Jewish, not white and, it's always, because that will get people riled up. And that's what the media just wants to work off of. You know, oh, white cop shoots black. What about a cop shoots man? Why do we have to put color with it? Because that's the narrative. That's what they want.
Now,
I would like to add, sorry, Johnny.
No, go
I'd
for
like
it.
to add that when you look at the stats from the United States, I don't know what it's like in Canada. I don't live in Canada, so I don't honestly pay attention to what happens up there. But I know that when you look at the stats for the United States, that no matter what anybody has to offer regarding the black on black crime versus the black on white crime versus the white on white crime, what boggles my mind is when you have actual statistics that are real statistics done by the Bureau of Justice Statistics in the United States, that all police forces and judicial branches have to report to. It was, I would say 2 years ago, around 65% of all violent crime are committed by 8% of the United States. And that 8% is predominantly black males over the age of 12. So the gun violence, either in suburbia America versus the inner, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. The inner city it's a non sequitur. You have to look at it. This stuff has moved into the suburbs, and it's crazy. One of the things that I deal with on a daily basis is this. As a probation officer in this, I'm not going to name the county that I work in, but it's what we deal with on a daily basis.
I saw Robbie chimed out for a second. Do you want to chime back in, Robbie? Maybe not. Maybe he's still on his 15-minute break.
On a timeout.
So we briefly kind of talked about this organization, right? That is, I believe it started at 2013, and it started with the Trayvon Martin case, which was obviously the big case of. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was the
Martin Zimmerman.
Yes, and the iced tea and all of those things, right? That they were mixing things together.
Oh, the Skittles.
Yes, the Skittles, the iced tea, and there's some cough syrup, maybe, right? So this was that case, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at that complete case, right? You look at again, the first thing is when you look at Black Lives Matter, right? It is always making a hero of people making poor decisions and poor choices, right? Not all of them are people who were, maybe all criminals, right? Let's not just paint a broad stroke, but they were all people making bad decisions, many of them being lifelong criminals in many instances. So this is probably, I think, the biggest takeaway with most people in America or around the world, where they where we say you're breaking the law. This is the consequences of breaking the law, resisting arrest, having a gun illegally on you, doing certain things, right? And I'll show a statistic here in a bit, but this is what Black Lives Matter, the organization, was pushing, right? So this was, hashtag say my name, all of these things, and there were all of these injustices that were happening, which started to sprinkle into Christian music world, right? So We had Kirk Franklin at the Dove Awards give his famous speech, which ended up becoming, as Johnny will know, in the beginning of the Mandisa song, "We All Bleed the Same," featuring Toby Mac. And this speech was all about how white Christians weren't speaking up for these atrocities that were happening within the black community. And ultimately, I believe he's still boycotting the Dove Awards over these things, and demands that there is some type of justice. And his biggest thing was, by you not saying something is saying something. That was his famous phrase that he said out of that. Whether it was famous or now infamous, you be the judge. This is what has torn apart. And tonight we're going to be addressing both from secular worldview and a Christian worldview, but it has torn apart and segregated the church even more so, right? We have young millennial woke Christians all clinging to, BLM. And then we have, more staunch churches, clinging to, breaking the law, doing these things. We shouldn't be, saying this is a good, we should be, putting the blame on police officers, right? So you have this huge division already occurring and happening. And that comes back to now the Black Lives Matter, the movement, right? So let's spend some time chatting about that. What actually occurred? What is happening? And is there some aspects and truth to the claims that are out there? So go for it, guys.
So, did you want the tenets of what Black Lives Matter believes?
Sure, go for it. Yeah, before we do that, go right into that. Yeah, and if Robbie wants to share on that, because I know he just popped in too as well.
All right. The Black Lives Matter global network is as powerful as is because of our membership, our partners, our supporters, and our staff, and you. Our commitment to liberation for all Black people means we are continuing the work of our ancestors and fighting for our collective freedom because it is our duty. Every day we recommit to the healing ourselves and each other, and to creating alongside comrades, allies, and family and culture, where each person feels seen, heard, and supported. We acknowledge, respect, and celebrate differences and commonalities. We work vigorously for freedom and justice for Black people, and by extension, all people. We internationally build and nurture a beloved community that is bonded together through a beautiful struggle that is restorative, not depleting. We are unapologetically Black in posturing and affirming that Black Lives Matter. We need not qualify our position. To love and desire freedom and justice ourselves is a prerequisite for wanting the same for others. Right there's nothing really wrong with that, in my opinion. We see ourselves as part of the global Black family, and we are aware of the different ways we are impacted or privileged as Black people who exist in different parts of the world. We are guided by the fact that all Black Lives Matter, regardless of actual perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, ability, disability, religious beliefs or disbeliefs, immigration status, or location. We make space for transgender brothers and sisters to participate and lead. We are self-reflexive and do the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege and uplift Black trans folk, especially Black trans women who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. We build a space that affirms Black women and is free from sexism, misogyny, and environments in which men are centered on. We practice empathy. We engage, which is not true. We engage comrades with the intent to learn about and connect with their contexts. We make our space family friendly and enable parents to fully participate with their children. Next comes this line, which made me question. This is where you question everything. We want to dismantle the
Patriarchal.
patriarchal practice that requires mothers to work double shifts so they can mother in private even as they participate in public justice work. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. We foster a queer affirming network. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, or rather, the belief that all in the world are heterosexual unless she or he or they disclose otherwise. We cultivate an integral and communal network free from ageism. We believe that all people, regardless of age, show up with the capacity to lead and learn. We embody and practice justice, liberation, and peace in our engagements with one another. This was put on their website in 2016, and it was scrubbed by 2020. So I had to really fight to find this again. But this was the original tenets of Black Lives Matter. This is what it's built on.
What gets me about hearing that, it's like how they just emphasize so much with the gay community. Nothing against gay people, LGBT, nothing against that. But just that huge paragraph that they were just kept talking about it. Why aren't we talking about reinforcing black folk with each other and just, like I said, we need to pull together as a people. I remember when I saw Malcolm X years ago, and I remember this white woman came up to Malcolm X and said, "Hey, I want to join." And he stopped and he said, "Let us kind of work on ourselves before we reach out to other people." And like I said, that was years ago that I heard that. That's what we need to do as black folk. We need to pull together and just respect each other and get rid of, there's a letter, I know my ex used to say I was a bouncy ball. There's a letter that a friend of mine told me about when I was in the Army. And I forgot the actual name that it called. But it talked about a slave owner coming from England, coming to visit one of his friends. And he said, "Hey, I noticed that you're having a problem with slaves. You got them hanging, this is what you need to do." And it talked about how to separate black folk from like field, house. Then it came down to color. Let's separate between dark and light. And to this day, we still have problems like that. We still do. If you were a darker black person compared to light, the lights got treated better than dark. And then to a point, it kind of flip-flopped there, but that's where we always had our problem. I hate to say it, I had somebody close to me tell me, "Oh, you never trust a dark black, short black man." And my best friend LaBelle, I'm like, "Hey, what are you saying?" But that was the mentality of the black people back in the day, and I still see it's incorporated with today's society. And I call it BS. It shouldn't matter what you know, my dad always used to say black folk are like crabs in a barrel. When one of them's just about to get up to the top, another one's pulling back down. We still deal with our pride, and a few of us. I'm one. You know, I'm who I am. You know, people have problems with it. That's their problem, not mine. You know, it took me a while to get to that because I always looked at viewed myself like, why do I like this kind of music? Why do I like this? Or why? Because, you know, quote unquote, that's white in people's eyes. I'm called an Oreo. It took years for me to accept who I am as a black man. And I had an ex tell me, he said, why don't you act black? I said, what's black? Tell me, what's black? Didn't have anything to say. I even asked a racist person that was part of the Klan. I go, what did we do to you that you treat us this way? Nothing to say. So, bouncy ball again, back to the movement. I believe there is a purpose there, but this type of movement, in my Andre Price's opinion, needs to be changed up a little bit more. It needs to have a focus on having like Italian pride, Mexican pride, Irish pride, where you see those cultures, they're very tight. Black culture, yes, it's tight, but yet we're not like the ones that I mentioned. You know, that's what we need to get. This BLM needs to be, like I said, needs to be Black Lives Matter to each other. If I see a fellow brother down and out or sister down and out, let me go make sure they're good to go. Not sit there and be like, look at them, they think they all this and that. No, we need to be back and building each other up, you know, and just reaching out to the youth. I mean, I kind of feel bad that I kind of went back on my words. I always said when my son graduated high school, which was last year, that I wanted to get involved with the Big Brother, Big Sisters and help young black youth, especially young black men. And life got in the way. I'm just being honest, started driving the truck, did his career change. But I'm still watching, he's upstairs. And, you know, I'm still making sure the little guys stay focused. But
the little guy is 7 feet tall.
Oh, no, he's not. But it's just like the one thing I want to see happen is for black folk not to be prideful, to like how I see some black folk are like, I'm black and, you know, you're white, you need to submit to me, you know, because of the BS that you did. Your people, your forefathers did. You need to be nice to me. And I kind of feel I feel for white people with it because a lot of them are like, I didn't do anything. You know, like some people be like, well, you know, what was your parent? They're like, my parent family wasn't around during slavery. But the movement needs to change. It needs to be more, it needs to be humble, it needs to help people out, other black folk out, so we can like regain that pride like the other you know, cultures that I mentioned. But enough that I could just ask Doug. I'll just keep going.
Let me ask you this though, because you had said with the MLK thing, and you said we need to pull together. It's been all of these years, and you feel like as a black community, it's not there. Why? Is it the pride thing?
Yes, it is.
Then how do you break that down?
You know what's hard about it is try to teach somebody to be humble. To go, I have a problem, I need help. Or you see a brother or sister down, reach out to them like, hey, you need some help? You need some money? You need a place to stay? Hey, you need me to work on your house? To reach out, we need to revert back. I would say revert just being humble. Take criticism, admit you're wrong. You know, I had an issue. I don't know if I want to since I brought this. A few months ago, I was driving and I was going down my street, and I was in the school zone, and here comes this semi truck. He's coming in hot, and I'm like, dude, the 20 mile an hour. So I block him. He goes over, I block him again. Then he gets to a point, he passes me, and he tries to tail whip. So I pull up alongside him. I'm like, just going off. I'm like, dude, what the F's wrong with you, blah. And why I'm gonna pull the race card on this? Because because I'm a black man and I've seen. There was a white guy, and I told him, I was like, dude, that was a 20 mile an hour school zone back there. I'm watching out for him because the fines are on double as a semi truck driver. And he stopped. As he's cussing me out, I'm cussing him out. When I said about the 20 mile an hour, he was like, oh man, I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry. Right then and there. Now, see, I'm like, if that was a black guy, I could be wrong, but what I've seen, we would have kept arguing. We probably throw fisticuffs, even though he knew he was wrong. But it was a fact that I insulted. It's just a fact of a lot of us don't want to back down. I think how my life was, how I was raised, and how I'm wired is the reason why who I am. I know when to shut my mouth and be like, okay, cool. Sometimes I don't. I do have some issues, ask my exes. But 9 times out of 10, I know when to throttle back. And Johnny, like you were saying, there needs to be more people to be like, let's implement a humble stand for the black race to ask for help, to say we're wrong, to help each other out, and not look for something in return. I remember posting something on my Facebook, talked about doing something and not looking for a return. Or, oh, look at me giving this homeless guy this sandwich. No, we don't need to do that. We don't need to be flashy. I'm saying if you look good, but there's no need to be flashy. Let's reach out and just like, hey, let's build each other up. That's one thing. I don't know if it's across the human race, period, in America, society, but let's build each other up. Let's hold each other accountable. You know what I miss? I remember I wanted to say something to you, Doug, about it. You remember the Promise Keeper?
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that?
Promise
I thought for as men.
Promise Keepers is still around, but it took a hit, just like everything else has in Christianity.
I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful movement. I know sorry, Chris, I know it's a little off the thing, but I thought that movement, I saw men, us men humble. I thought it was a wonderful thing, especially when the stadiums are full, and it's just, man.
That was wonderful.
Man, that was wonderful.
Well, that was great, Andre. So let's look at this next few minutes. Let's look at the next part of that. Robbie, are you still there? Because it's been 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you want to share anything before we move on to the final?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I caught a little bit, and we had some issues there. But overall, we're getting into the whole BLM. I think it's a huge injustice to the black community. I think it's the biggest sham imaginable. Take Planned Parenthood, right? All these guys are fighting for abortion, and yet it completely victimizes the black communities 5-1. It's absolutely insane levels of racism in these organizations that show, oh, we're fighting for racism. They don't care about the inner cities. They don't care about black on black crime. They don't care at all. And then you have all these people that are fighting to hey man, we want you to have your baby. Do you understand that more black people will exist in the world if we actually get rid of these Planned Parenthoods? But nobody can see it. It frustrates me to no end when I see all this stuff happening, because you're just what in the world's going on? It is nothing but a sham. It's set up as a Marxist organization. It has absolutely nothing to do with people of color. If you read all the stuff you guys went through, transgender. What the heck does that have to do with race, right? Oh, and let's destroy the nuclear family. Oh yeah, that sounds good. Like, let's mess with something nuclear. That's going to end up well, right? You want to like blow up the world? Have fun. Take out the family, and you take out the entire bedrock and foundation of all societies. This is nothing but a spiritual deception, and they're using the race card, race baiting people continually. And it's sad to see because so many people are just buying it. They're just buying it. They're like, oh, yeah. When they're screaming racist and bigot and hater and all that stuff, I find that all these organizations and all these people on that side, they're the ones that are the strongest racists. CT, you're talking about critical race theory. What's more racist than categorizing people in race and telling black people they're victims, they'll always be victims, and oh, by the way, that white people will always be oppressors. And by the way, there's no forgiveness. There's no way to repent from it. You're going to continually be this way forever. It is seriously, cancer is destroying absolute like countries right, left, and center. I think it's the biggest cancer that we've seen in a long time. I think it's one of the biggest reasons of the downfall of the Western kind of liberal, new world order that are trying to inflict all this garbage across the world right now. It's bad. It's really bad. And if people would just wake up and see exactly what's going on, it's just tough, man. We're in a spiritual war, and people are so blinded. But it's unfortunate. And again, they have done this with so many countries. When you want to take it down the country, you do one of two things. You either do the poor versus rich, or you do the race. And they have chosen the race with this one, and they're really hammering it. U.S., there's people all over the world that are begging. They're traveling like thousands of miles to get into America. They're coming in from every country of the world. If it is the most racist country in the world, why is everyone all over the world trying to get there? Rant over.
This is what happens when you box up Robbie. He brings it. I think you said about 20 minutes, and that was about in 2 minutes, Robbie. So we'll be so that is what BLM the organization is. So now let's look at what the BLM movement, because if I have a video, we could play it. It is Lecrae's thoughts on this, right? And so I can summarize. We can play it maybe if we want to, and we can really kind of deconstruct what he has to say. And then again, here's Lecrae trying to tell everyone who about who's a victim, who's not a victim. And the one thing that I really struggled with Lecrae on is that Lecrae posted 1 year. It was a 4th of July photo, and he wrote a caption that said, "My family in 1776," and it was a cotton farm. What he was doing in that instance, while in the year that he put that out, 2021, whenever he put it out,
Right though.
He although correct in a sentiment, what he's trying to do in looking at this in hindsight of really who he is a man who has a net worth of $2 million, where no system has held him down or held him back from achieving what he has achieved, while sitting back, just like all athletes, actors, the top of these people who are really untouchable. Like when LeBron James speaks and telling everybody what they should think and believe.
Who are really untouchable. Okay, I'm going to mute it until you talk to me.
Okay, and LeBron James he's surpassed race. LeBron James is a human deity. Let me just say that with a lower D. Okay, the amount of wealth and power that he has more in common with the Warren Buffetts, the George Soros of the world, rather than he has with anybody from the Black community. And he is unrelatable. We have held back people so much in this country that NBA basketball players, Steph Curry, are making, $30-40 million a year with their NBA contracts. So you look at these things and you go, okay, why are we listening? Why should anybody, what side are we on, are listening to these people actually speak when they're not any of us? They aren't relatable to us. They aren't middle class people. They aren't. They are in this top 0.000% of human beings, and their power, their influence is all coming from one thing, and that is all from control. And so now let's move into the claims of the BLM movement. These are the things where Lecrae said, we separate, okay, Christians, white Christians in particular, we can separate ourselves from BLM, the movement, or the BLM, the organization, and attach ourselves to BLM, the movement, as they're two separate entities and things. So let's discuss that, and let's actually, maybe, for the listener, what is different about the movement compared to the organization?
I honestly don't think that there's anything different anymore. I think it's now blurred lines. On Lecrae, I just think he's an uneducated person. Because if you looked at 1776 and actually looked at real history, he would see that that's not necessarily true about the cotton farms. And that there was a lot more African Americans or Africans fighting alongside the Revolutionary War, or the Revolutionary Army, than it was the British Army. So,
and only in certain parts of the country as well, as some people want to learn, right? And if you haven't educated yourself, I highly suggest everybody take a note and a listen to Thomas Sowell.
yes.
He is a college professor who is well astute in all of that history, right? So, and he is by far a gem who has sort of missed his time of social media, TV appearances, because he would have, been able to spearhead these things that aren't being taught in schools. And it is really some fascinating stuff when you really look at, the research that Thomas Sowell has done, and the books that he has written, the things that he's done. And when people do look at those things, they start to change their perspective of these topics. So, Doug, you don't think there's anything different with the organization. So let me phrase the question a little differently. So the claims, right? So we see all of these, unarmed black men, right? So, when you follow someone like Larry Elder, he will reveal that there, when this was a major issue, we're dealing with about 9 unarmed black men who were shot by police officers, right? So we had, very low number, too many. Let's just be honest. Let's say it. Any wrongful death of any race by the hands of anyone, for any reason at any time, that's a Michael Scott joke, is wrong. And, so let's just put that out there. But let's look at these claims. What are we seeing, and why are we seeing so many of them, out there?
Anyone?
I agree with Doug. I think it's hard to like separate it. I mean, I think when it stands for like this whole idea, we have to like acknowledge that, like, and again, I know it sounds trite, but like all lives matter, right? And of course, Black lives matter. And that's one thing. If you really care about it, you stop the slaughtering of the babies that are being slaughtered. If you do the statistics, like you brought up, Chris, with the shooting, right? It's highly exaggerated. But what's worse is most of the things, when you start researching them, you find out that they're trying to make racism a thing that's not even there. Now, I'm not saying that racism doesn't like exist, but what I'm saying is they highly exaggerate these things, like the noose, like Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett had to fake this racism crime that never even existed, right? What I'm saying is, if it was so rampant, they wouldn't have to actually manufacture all these things. And that's what we see over and over and over again, constantly over the last like 4 or 5 years. That's all we've seen. Meanwhile, they're like, burning buildings, rioting, carrying on. Everyone's like, your church has to shut down, your businesses have to shut down. We got to lock everyone down. But oh no, not BLM, because they're fighting for racism. So let them all gather in the hundreds of thousands. No big deal, right? The whole thing is staged to take down society. I think it's sad because they don't care about blacks. They're using them like they've used them for a very long time. It's unfortunate that people don't know their history and find out that Democrats are the ones that have been the worst to blacks all throughout history. It was the Republicans that were fighting to get them freed, right? And as far as these reparations and like all these bad things that have happened, what about the Civil War? 300,000 white people died fighting that racism ends, right? So this whole idea, like, at what point are you paid and you're whole again? So I think the whole idea, especially as Christians and Bible believers, we sit there and say, look, man, we all bleed red. We're all basically, human, right? That's the biggest thing. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with cultures identifying with each other. This whole idea like, oh, you're racist if you want to hang out with your own, color of skin. There's nothing wrong with that. The only thing wrong is if you're like, I'm not going to purposely hang out with anyone of this color. That's where it's wrong. But this whole idea, they've made it where all of a sudden, like, I think you brought up before I forget the guy's name, said that like this white guilt. White people are almost terrified now to even speak because it's like, heaven forbid we say something that is wrong. I know being in the States, I know there's issues, but overall, had it not become the best it had possibly been compared to where it was before, they have literally manufactured this huge idea of racism, just like they manufacture all sorts of things and put us in states of fear. So again, I'm with Doug on this, that honestly, I find it hard to separate Black Lives Matter with the organization because of course they matter. Everyone matters. And guys, the most innocent Black Lives matter the most. And those are the innocent babies in the wombs that are being slaughtered by Margaret Sanger and her idea to bring out Planned Parenthood. All these guys are interconnected. And again, when you look at the founders and you look at the beginnings, even BLM, it's nothing but Marxist racism. I mean, if you look at their ideology, you're just like, how can people not wake up and see this? But again, they've just been duped and they believe this is great and they're fighting for their cause, but it's not helping. If anything, it's causing more racism, not less.
I think I can see a difference between the two in the sense that I think the organization came out and had this idea, whatever their idea was, and then with that came money, and with that came power, and then an agenda to whatever that is. Where I can see a movement being a little different because there are Black people who do want to see change. I mean, Andre, you even said before, that we need to come together. We need to be more of a community. We need to put the pride away. So I think that there is a difference in organization to a movement of, we want to see change. We want to see things that are different. We want to see change, whether it's a commonality of everybody coming together or whether it's a movement within Black people in projects or in cities or in states.
I agree. It's like, I just want to see, here Robbie, man, he was like hitting it on the head with just how they're just using Black people. If it wasn't Black people, let's say it was Mexican. Oh, let's use them. That's going to be our agenda. That's going to help us, move, like you said, this Marxist movement. That's what they want to do. It's sickening. It's sickening that in 2022, we're still dealing with this bull crap from, people not using their heads. I admit, I use my phone all the time, but, we'll use that phone quicker than, hey, let me go look into this. And, it's just, I just wish people would just open their eyes. Shut their mouths and open their eyes.
I think that, one of the things that has helped me over the years is, when you talk about the shootings and stuff like that, you talk about having research, you have wait for the investigations, you got to wait for the actual justice system to roll, even if it's a long waiting out roll period. You have to let those things happen before you start to crucify everybody involved. I mean, we're seeing it right now in Akron, Ohio, with the Jalen Walker shooting. Now, do I agree with a guy getting shot at 90 rounds and getting hit 46 times? To me, it's a little bit excessive, especially with 8 cops pointing a gun at them. But this stuff gets fabricated to a way of being molded to be every white person's a racist, every black person is a victim, and there's no room for any black person to rise above. I mean, even though some of the richest people in America right now are black people, they don't that's forgotten. And I mean, Dre, we saw it all through growing up. I mean, we've been friends for a long time, and we've been in cars where cops have stopped us. We've gone to metal concerts where people stare at you. It just is. I don't know how to put it, but I don't think that there is a difference anymore between actual Black Lives Matter movement, because it's all gelled together because the system itself has had to gel it together to keep it going.
Well, I think that when we look at the statistics, right? We look at these things. I could share this screen. This is CBS. Let me share this for everybody. Let me share this real quick. This is the 164 people by CBS. CBS puts this out, and this, you might have seen this image, spreading around the internet, right? Everybody does this, and this is the Say My Name stuff. When you really read everything, single thing that has happened in these cases, these are things, again, where we are glorifying criminal activity, and where this isn't always a direct case of racism, right? Look, racism is going to always exist, right? It is a natural inherent evil of humans, and it isn't going to go away, especially when they can exploit it and continue to utilize it. It's a spiritual issue, right? This whole thing is a very spiritual issue, right? Color exists within a physical world. Our differences exist within a physical world. Our similarities, the things that unite us, they all happen on a spiritual level, right? So if we're talking about Christianity, Christians and people of faith should be united on what gels them spiritually. All of those physical things should wash away, should pass away. When you look at scripturally, the 12 tribes of Israel, right? We all often think that Israel is the Jews. Well, most of the people who watch this channel, they understand that is not the case at all, right? Jews come from Judah, and all other of the tribes are Israel, but they're not Jews. So there are differences, and especially when people came into those camps, as we have the mixed multitude who left Egypt, who sojourned, different race with them. We have all of these other different people who came and part about, and who, the sojourner who had the same law, who is a Gentile who grafted into the body of Israel, into the different tribes, were different colors, different races, and that is all part of it, because, and then at the end of the day, they were all united that they were all Israel, even though they were from different tribes, and they may have had different color skin, they may have had all of these different things. This is the same thing that we should be dealing with today. But yet we see, purposeful segregation within church that, and this, we're not too far removed from the 1950s, 1960s, because we still have predominantly white churches, black churches within Christianity, and very few intermingled churches. And not to say there's anything necessarily wrong with that, right? Because maybe we are attracted to this style more than that style. We like this more than that. And that's fine and dandy. But there has almost been a purposeful designed to segregate. And so this, like I said, this is a spiritual thing. And so when we go back to these issues, these become a little bit more cut and dry when you go through this huge entire list of criminals or people who have made poor choices, young people who were either on drugs or they were involved in gangs or starting to get involved in gangs or doing, terrible things, or being in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? There are incidences when these things occur and happen. And so this is the reason behind the movement, right? Everybody sees this and says, oh, this is the very reason that we must stand up for this, right? When we can just go and look at all the other races who have had the same afflictions happen to them amongst police officers, amongst our medical systems, right? I mean, the medical community is responsible for more harm than police officers, and we're not going after them. We're not talking about them for medical mispractice, all the things that they do to every single race. The Black community is hammered with heart disease as a number one killer, and yet we don't address those things. Yet we have democratic cities who destroy inner cities, give them the worst food, the worst places to eat, and yet they come out with more diabetes, more heart disease, more cancer, more illness, more sickness. And yet we sit back and we're going, no, this is the issue. No, these are the problems, right? We want to take the parents out of the home. We want to, when Lyndon B. Johnson gave you more money for the father to be absent from the home through the welfare programs, and we started taking strong men out of the homes, and strong women became not so strong because they became the workforce and they became all the things, and God bless those people. But if you go back and watch that show that recently came out, which was Wonder Years Part 2, and you just watch that and you talk to people from that era, there was a very strong dynamic, strong Black male and a Black woman in the home raising children, and they were all centered around a good Black church, right? And these were the things they overcame. True racist systems, right? We had the Jim Crow laws, very racist, very detrimental. But you had these strong, dynamic families still able to rise up. We had white, privileged jobs, right? You couldn't just go into these things, and I've interviewed a lot of these people and talked to them. These were the cases, but what did they do? They still persevered. They still pushed through, and they got to where they were at today because they believed in a God who was in control, and they had support of their family, and they were responsible to raise that family. That is no different in that community than it is in every single home. Every home, if you take out a strong man and you take out the woman and you try to do these things, you're going to have challenges. But it's Denzel Washington who said, and Obama and even Don Lemon, all of these guys said, you remove the father from the home, your child is more like 50% more likely to be in jail in the Black community. I mean, right now we are dealing with 75% of single parent homes, and this is the talking points for modern day conservatives, because this is how we fix things. And I always encourage anybody. Tony Evans is an absolutely amazing preacher and teacher, but what he teaches is getting men to become kingdom men, take control of their homes, and for women to become kingdom women and take control of their homes in a supporting role to that husband, and they raise up kingdom children who are honoring to not only their parents, but they do not become those statistics. and that is how we fix these things, whatever home they are, because we can go into trailer park homes in white communities and we have the same exact issues and same things happening. And we have to take a look at the programs and the things that are put in place, the entertainment put in front of these children. The little black boys and little black girls grow up thinking, I am either going to be a drug dealer, a basketball player, a rapper, or I'm going to become a stripper or somebody who uses my body to make money or to land a good guy, right? You are more than those things. You are more than your body parts. You are a design from God, and it's time for Americans. It's time for people. It's time for Christians to start teaching that. It's time for these Christian artists, these Christian pastors to teach those things and actually say those things. And some of you do, and some of you just shy away from it.
Yeah, totally, Chris. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's the epidemic. It really is fatherless homes. I mean, everything can be stemmed back from that, a lot of the issues that are going on. So, yeah, man, totally 1,000% agree with what you just said. It's absolutely incredible when you start looking into exactly, and no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to talk about it, right? Like, oh, I wonder what's going on. It's like, it is a serious issue with the fatherless homes. Like, you do the stats like you had talked about, you go deep into them, and you're just like, it is so glaring. And you're right, it doesn't matter, but it does really affect the black communities. And again, it was way back in the day, they started basically incentivizing the fathers leaving the homes, right? And the mothers taking control and stuff. So it's really sad to see what's going on. And these organizations that say, we're fighting for it, it's like, meanwhile, they're buying mansions and like the black communities are getting nothing. They're just getting ripped off. It's such a sham. It's so sad.
I mean, think about it. When the Great Society took place by LBJ, I want to say African American homes were at a 7% divorce rate or fatherless homes. To after, what was it, 40 years or something like that, it's at a 70 or 75%. And that's an amazing jump and an amazing leap. And it just shows where that was targeted from. But it was mainly to gain votes from the African American community for the Democrats. So it's, again, learn your history. All this stuff is, well, it's somewhat is available on Google if you Google it. You get warped answers from, New York Times and stuff like that. But I see it every day in the cases that I work with, the kids that I work with, the fatherless homes, and how important it is to have a father and a mother. And it's just not there anymore.
I think one thing I would say with the church is holding on to what Christ taught. Especially how you talk about the tension between black and white with BLM and in the church. It's like, why aren't you taking what Christ said to heart? It's that simple. What he's in the Bible, it's like, it's that simple. But are you bringing the human factor into play? Oh, I don't want to say this because I might be offended if I say that, or if I don't. There should be, in my mind, there should be no problems at all. But, there is. And I just wish that people would just get off their high horses, just reach out and just help each other. Black, white, whatever. It's like, you're a human being, you're an American. My point is just, you're an American. We all need to just help each other out. But like Chris, you're saying, the lines between the movement and, we're all like, hey, they're kind of blended together. And it's just, I wish it was that simple that we could just be like, hey, just snap our fingers, we'll be cool. Let's help each other out. But
But Trey, that's how we have remained friends over the years. We never saw black or white. We never. I mean,
No,
I called you on your music taste, not your color. You know, your music taste at times is horrible, but you know.
Well, hey, Andre, let me ask you this: do you like Insole?
Insole?
Insole, Insole
Oh,
Records.
Insole. I remember Insole. Yeah, I like some of the stuff.
Okay, yeah, Robbie was the Canadian rep for Insole.
What?
Yeah, so.
I was not the Canadian rep for Insole.
Oh,
It was
you
like
were-
in the
you were
works,
for your-
but I never did it.
Okay. Oh, it was in the works. Okay, I'm sorry. You were close.
Let's be honest. Robbie just promoted like really the bad stuff from Soul that came out.
No. I just promoted Delirious across Canada. I won all the records for like promoting Delirious. I really went to town promoting Delirious. That was my thing.
But he's got about about 400 sealed Insole CDs still.
I do, and you've got like 40,000.
Dude, I can call Philip Kim right now from Soul. I think we should
Yeah,
get him
that's him. He's a go guy. That's awesome. We should get him on. We should get him on and talk about the days to end soul and it'd be fun.
his old band Raspberry Jam and
Hey, Raspberry Jam. There's some cool songs from them, man.
we should
Shut up, Doug.
Crystal
Doug, quiet.
Music segue. Music segue.
Music segue. Hey, just to let you all know, Mortal is coming back.
What?
Mortal and Full Zandura started a new band.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Jerome and Gyro.
What's it called again? It's a merger, right?
Morzan.
Morzan. Okay. Yeah.
So
I was a big Mortal fan.
just thought I'd throw that out there. Our Filipino brothers.
Just waiting for the Imperials.
Oh, God, the Imperials.
Wow. Imperials. Gotta get it in.
That's
Ask Andre about touring with Dirt and what it was like being the only black guy in an all-white hip hop arena.
Oh yeah, that was very interesting.
Well, actually, I do have some really good questions for you, Andre, because I think this would be a good one. And maybe Johnny, you can maybe get a follow up for this. Let's just get real. Let's just talk about it, right? Because racism clearly still exists, right, in so many different realms and ways. What do you in your life, what is your opinion on that, and what have you experienced within that?
Oh, quite a bit. It's funny that I'll bring up, you just kind of see the kind of person I am. Some people think, oh, Andre never experienced any type of racism or, stuff like that. He grew up in, the suburbs. Oh, I've experienced a lot of it. And Doug was, part of some of the BS that I've dealt with. And one that I always remember.
Wait a minute. Rephrase that, because I didn't actually commit any of the racism.
Oh, no, you were with me when the issues popped up, especially in good old Parma AMRAP, There was an incident. It was my friend Bester Lavelle, Justin, and Joe. So there's 2 white guys, including me, and 2 black guys, including myself, We were sitting in the Metro Parks and just listening to music, because that's what I miss. That's one thing too, listening to music, hanging out, chilling. We're in my car, listening to music. I don't know what happened, what caused this to happen. Next thing you know, we got Solon police surrounding us with guns drawn, and I'm like sitting there because I just happened to look in my mirror. I'm like, why is there a Solon cop? He's out of his car with his gun drawn, and he's talking to us, and we all got out the car, hands up, this and that. And they pull our friend Joe, who's white, aside, and the officer's like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, they're my best friends. He's like, granted, they pulled Justin, who was white, aside, but kept Lavelle and I, who were black, separate from them. and is also experiencing Parma being pulled over. It just really frustrates me just because of the color of my skin. You know, you get to know me and be like, wow, you know, I'm who I am. Like Doug said, our friendship, it's always just been based off of what we like and who we are. The chemistry that we're just cool. It's not because Andre's black. He's my, you would hear that like, hey, my best friend's black. You know, no, but yeah, experiencing the racism there, especially in the workplace. You know, I remember one time I was living in Avon Lake back in the 80s. And oh, what was that one thing? The one I was joking around, I told the track coach, I was like, hey, I want to get into pole vaulting. And he pulled me aside. He goes, you know, that'd be like crap on a stick. And it didn't really set in until like years later. I'm like, what the hell why do you have to pull that card? You know, being called the N-word and just, you know, it just sucks that just because of color of my skin, and for, you know, Chris who's met me, Johnny who's hearing me now, Robbie who's hearing what kind of person that I am. If I was just talking, you didn't see my face or anything, you'd probably be like, oh, okay, that's, you know, sounds a pretty cool guy. And then it's just one of those things where I'm like, man, why does color have to be anything? Why does color have to mean not coming to your house? I've been to a church, Solon Church. I sat down and this woman just nonchalantly picked her purse up, moved it to the other side. And just like, why don't you hang around? Oh, I know, Chris, you're like, wow, I just asked for one thing. You just throwing this out.
No. Yeah.
When I moved to Avon Lake, I was 12. And I got there right before the school started. And it was towards the end of summer. And I met this this one kid, and he invited me over to his house. Well, he wasn't there yet, but his little brother was. It was like maybe a year or two younger. And I remember we were playing in the back, and I slipped and fell. And I, you know, messed my knee up, and I cut it. And I remember his mother, just a petrified look on her face. I'm just like, you know, like, okay, I learned to stay cool and stuff, you know. And she kind of threw me the Band-Aid. She didn't hand it to me. She was just like, here. And a few weeks later, I called. I said, so-and-so there. And she was like, you need to find other friends. You don't need to be hanging around my son. This, you know. And I'm like, wow, like, why? What did I do? You know, growing up like that, it's like just because of the color of my skin. I mean, I like the things I like. If, you know, how society would say I'm, you know, trying to be white. No, these are the things that I like, you know. And just be like, I didn't do anything wrong to anybody. You know, I didn't attack you. I didn't attack your mother. I didn't, you know, rape your kid. I didn't do anything like that. Just for the simple fact of color of my skin. And it's like also too, think about back in the day with the Arabs, back with 9/11. But that was like, it was like a short whoop, and then everybody's like, hey, you know. And with black folk, we just it's like we still get the short end of the stick. I mean, we've made big progress, a lot of leaps, but I don't think it's in the right direction. You know, it's like more of individuals. You know, I have an idea. I want to get a, you know, trucking business started in the future. And, you know, I definitely want to do my part and reach out to, you know, anybody, as long as you do your job. But mainly, I'll hit black men who are felons and be like, hey, I got box trucks that you could drive. You know, that's my main goal. But if you're not performing and meeting the bar that I set, then that I'll have you set, you're gone. And if I can have a white guy that's, you know, doing an awesome job, or Latino or anybody else. The thing is, it comes down to it is I'm making money, you know, and but yeah, it sucks. The race, just that race card that they have to pull. Like you, I think Robbie was saying, for rich, poor. Okay, we can't deal with that. Oh, black, white. We can get people going with that, and it's terrible. It is terrible.
Like I said, and
I mean, there's jerk people ever. I think we all acknowledge, racism, but like we have to acknowledge. I don't know why we're so desperate to like please everyone. The idea is we can't please everyone, and again, everyone is not nice. There's evil people, there's jerks, so like I think sometimes, and I'm not discounting it at all, but I'm saying there's sometimes where it might be interpreted as that. But I mean, how many times in the encounters was it directly like, oh, by the way, I'm getting up and leaving because you're black? Like, all I'm saying is there's some people that are just snobby. They're rude, they're idiots, they're stupid. And I'm just saying overall, we have this tendency to believe that over time, would you still not agree in your lifetime? Have you not seen race relations overall improving, or are you seeing them disintegrate? Now, I'm not talking about BLM and all this stuff in the last, like, say, 10 years. But before that, overall, compared to like Jim Crow, every decade that was moving forward, did you not see it become better and better? That was my experience. I saw that happening for the most part. Now, were there racist people? Were there certain people that were jerks? Absolutely. But overall, as a whole, were more people like, we could talk about, racism in the church. I don't know any church that if you walk into the church, they say, sorry, you're black, you're not welcome here. In the same regard, if I went into a black church, and I've gone to black churches and I was like the only white guy. Now, I'm saying I could sense this, but anyways, my point was that this idea that like every time there's like somebody that's a jerk or they're awful or they're evil, if it's someone of the other color, that's racist. It might not be racist. They might just be jerks. They might just be evil. I like, we should have Jesse Lee Peterson on the show, but he breaks it down saying, really, at the end of the day, it's just good versus bad, and it's good versus evil, right versus wrong. There's certain ways to actually treat humans, and there's bad ways to treat humans. So like, I'm not discounting racism at all. Trust me, I'm not. But I'm saying, I think every time something bad happens now, it's like instantly a lot of people are just going to the racism card. And quite honestly, I don't know. I mean, I've known a lot of people in my life, and I have yet to find someone that's literally openly just said, I want nothing to do. I don't want to sit by them. I don't even want to go. Hey, by the way, we're driving over to my friend's place. What? They're black? Drop me off. I don't want to have anything to do with black people. In my entire life, I've never met people like that. So I know some people exist like that, but overall, I believe that the race relations were getting so much better, and almost the Marxists and communists couldn't have that, because if we're all getting along, we're going to fight the real enemy. But as long as we're fighting one another, we're too busy distracted and we don't see the true enemy.
Well, I mean, Robbie, the reality is that, you're right in that fact. I mean, me and Andre talk about this all the time. I mean, we grew up in the time, our friendship started around the era of Rodney King.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And when you look at where we're at now compared to then, Rodney King, the riots for Rodney King and everything that happened with that was just centrally located in Los Angeles. It wasn't a global thing. It wasn't an America thing. It was just centrally located in Los Angeles. Because I'm like, Dre, do you remember any situation arising where people protested in the streets of Cleveland or streets of Akron? And look, I come from a very strict Sicilian family. Andre was welcomed in, in that family from pretty much day one until he started eating all the food. So I mean, the reality is that, again, I think where we're at now had to be manufactured to fit a narrative to basically change directions in the world, so we are at each other's throats, so we are not paying attention to what's going on with the sleight of hand from other avenues. And we're seeing the decimation. At least I can see it here in America of the church, and it all is focusing on those 13 tenets of BLM, because it's becoming part of the tenets of the new church. Whether other areas are seeing it, I mean, we have to be okay with LGBTQ. We have to be okay with this. We have to, and it's like we have to go to what the Word of God says and call sin for sin. And that, to me, that's the issue. It has nothing to do with race. I mean, most of my friends are black. Most of my friends are part of hip hop movements and stuff like that. So therefore, I don't see it as most culturally sensitive white people in today's church society of, I mean, the Assembly of Gods at one point had to remove a couple churches because they were going to the BLM tenets, not the BLM movement. So I'm ranting.
Well, Johnny, do you have something?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I have a question for you, Doug. So Andre had mentioned that incident with the Solon police, and maybe you can speak to this, because I think this is maybe this has, we can, we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about like police reform or something, but you obviously in your job, private security, some of the things that you've done, training, done some police training. You're basically a toy cop with a gun.
Watch what you're saying.
What is, and I think this would be interesting to hear from your perspective. What is how do they gauge on stereotype? What is part of that training? What, is it like what LeBron James is saying, that every time that his children leave the house, he fears that somebody's going to hunt them down? What are those stereotypes that you are trained for in your job and in your field? Because that is sort of what we're talking about with BLM, the movement, right? Are we targeting wrongfully so? Our police forces, are they wrongfully targeting Black individuals based upon these stereotypes?
So I can only speak for me. In this instance, is that no. I mean, I can't speak for what happened back in the late 80s, early 90s with Andre and I. We didn't know the cops. We didn't know the training of police back then. I mean, I know that the one time that me and Andre were in a car together in Parma, we got pulled over. Cop asked him to step out of the car, and when Andre stepped out of the car, he freaked out because Andre was, 6 foot, however tall you are, and you towered over him. And he's like, oh, I just want to show you that your license plate light is out. And you don't get stopped for that. But I know that police officers back in the day, yes, they targeted Blacks. They targeted. I mean, I live in a community that, you get caught driving while being Black. That's a thing here. So I do know that exists. But what you're trained in the academy, because having gone through the police academy, and no, so I'm gonna say, and this might piss some people off, but honestly, when you have urban cops working in an urban area that is predominantly Black, you're going to have Black arrests. You're going to have cops shoot Black people. It's just, that's what happens when it's in the urban areas. That's what happens. If a cop if cops work in a predominantly white area, they're going to arrest white people. They're going to arrest and shoot white people. These cops don't go out hunting people. That is a narrative that is solely, I think, of the devil. Honestly, I mean, I just watched a few weeks ago where I had to stand in front of police officers because there was over 200 protesters ready to rip them to shreds and yelling at the black cops, calling them Uncle Toms, calling them race traitors, and all of this and that. But these cops are the ones that go out and will protect those people unabashedly. They will go and stand in front of a bullet for them. So I think that narrative is so far old and just being manipulated and used just to keep the narrative going. No, LeBron James, your kids aren't in danger of getting hunted down by cops. They're more going to be able to be hunted down because you're an idiot and you don't know how to speak.
I think it's cool. It's cool when you start speaking like that. You get like lots of likes on social media. Like I think it's a lot of peer pressure. To tell you the truth, I don't know deep down inside he actually believes that.
He's an ignorant fool.
Well, I mean, but I mean, like he doesn't worry about that at all. He's probably got like his own private security, and what the heck is he worried about? You know what I mean? He's got like it's just to me, it's silly. You mentioned though, Doug. Like I just wanted to mention this before I forget, but like. Uncle Tom's and stuff. By the way, UncleTom.com, you can watch the first one. I don't know if you guys seen the documentary. Super awesome based on this topic. I'm recommending everyone that is watching, listening, check out UncleTom.com because the sequel is getting released in the next 2 weeks. But you can watch the first one for free. I know Chris has seen it. Larry Elders is in it, Jesse Lee Peterson, but honestly, it is phenomenal. And it is very important for people to watch, to hear the other perspective. And I think pretty much all those guys that are in there are pretty much black, they're basically giving you a whole new side of things and a critique based on this narrative. And like I said, purposely brought to being to implode society. Nobody was fighting like this until they started like going crazy with these narratives. Now, like you said before, it doesn't happen in one city. It happens across the world. BLM riots started like in little towns in Canada. In my province of Alberta, there was like BLM riots going on. Like it's such a global phenomenon now where things happen and it's like this outrage. Everyone's always like outraged. It's like, oh my goodness. I think everyone can admit when they see injustices and things happening, it's wrong. But they're like, nope, this is more than wrong. We got to destroy the system. By the way, we got to tear down all the statues. We got to teach new history and we got to destroy everything. This whole idea that like America and all these countries are inherently racist and they're disgusting. We need to burn the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I honestly believe that their one trump card, no pun intended, is the race card. They are doing nothing but destruction through it. And then, hey, let's blend in, Planned Parenthood. Let's put some LGBT in there. Let's get all our agendas and let's use the black people. I think it is absolutely disgusting what's going on. I can't keep reiterating it over and over and over again because I see it constantly and I'm like, it's so tragic. I think the best way is to get people to wake up and see the truth of what's going on. But some people, you just can't. You've got to just keep loving people, being who you are, not being scared to tell the truth in love, but not cower in fear. Like you got this, like if you're a white person, like, oh my goodness, I got this white guilt. It's like, man, just say it. Hey man, I love everyone. All lives matter. What's wrong with that? That was like disgusting.
Robbie, what they're saying is if you actually truly believed that all lives matter, you would have been saying that before. And I think the argument to that instance, right, because that's one of the talking points is, of course, nothing wrong with saying all lives matter. But why are you saying it now in contradiction to Black Lives Matter, right? So
because Black Lives Matter as a whole, saying it just like that, it's racist. What about Hispanic Lives Matter? What about Asian Lives Matter? Like what I'm saying is people will hit that and they don't understand that saying alone is inherently just 100% racist. If you get everyone chanting that, but nothing else, you can't say, what about White Lives Matter? I mean, I'm using Jesse Lee Peterson because I think he's on the extreme, but he'll say White Lives Matter. Do you like think that white lives matter. And a lot of people have a hard time saying it. They'll be like, all lives matter. But do white lives matter? And people are so scared to even say that. White lives matter, black lives matter, Hispanic lives matter. The list goes on and on and on. All lives matter. So, as a biblical based, Christian show, that's what we just got to say it and not be afraid. Oh my goodness, people are going to be mad because I didn't chant Black Lives Matter. No, all human lives matter. Babies' lives matter. Just, so I'm sick and tired of this politically correct garbage that we're so scared to offend someone. Look, we can offend people. We can still love each other. You can love someone and say, you're wrong. I believe you're wrong. We've got to a point now where, heaven forbid, we tell someone that we think they're wrong. I can love someone and say, look, man, I love you, but I think you're dead wrong on this.
So where do we go from here, guys? We got about 20 minutes left of the show, and what I think we should do is maybe talk about it twofold. Are Christians that are walking down the path of supporting Black Lives Matter, one, are they causing more harm than good? Are we starting to convolute and confuse this situation even more than just stand up for biblical principles? And on a flip note, what are some suggestions of how we can rectify these issues? So
I'll just ask a quick question. I'll ask a quick question. Can you separate Black Lives Matter with critical race theory? Does anyone on the panel believe that those two could be separated? Like I'm saying, as a whole, as a movement. Because my point is, critical race theory is absolute toxic and cancer. And I think that they have a full kind of agenda moving forward, just like the LGBT. I was like, oh, they just want to have marriages and they just want equality. No. They've come for your children. They want your children. They want to, so I say on this all the time because we start on these like elementary levels, but we're like, what is their full on agenda? What is their finish line?
Well, I'll say this, Robbie. What's so funny is that all of these things are funded by George Soros, who happens to be a powerful white man who is pushing for things like critical race theory to eliminate the white man. So you look at all these things and you look at you had everybody voting who believed in Black Lives Matter for an old white man to become president, right? It actually becomes very quite comical of how you.
But Chris, you know what happens when the Marxists and communists get what they want. What happens to the minorities when they're done using them? What happens to them? The boot comes down on them frickin' hard. So do you not think that basically the boot is going to come down once they've used them to their advantages, whatever they want to get done? They don't understand that basically they are about to get the boot on their head is harder than they've ever had in their life. It's not funny what's coming, but again, while it's going on right now, they're using them to basically push forward their agendas.
Well, the democratically ran cities are the worst cities in America, and they are the ones causing. It's ironic. You have Chicago that has the strictest gun laws and has the worst crime, and yet no one talks about removing those guns that are killing innocent Black children by secondary fire, destroying children's home by their mother dying. We're not addressing these issues, and Lightfoot is absolutely destroying Chicago on purpose. And so let's for the last few minutes,
she won't even get interviewed by someone that's not like a white. She won't even get interviewed by someone Black or white. Isn't that Lori Lightfoot?
Yeah. But you got to call her by her real name, Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, yeah. No, it's disturbing,
that was
man.
mean.
It's like we live in Twilight Zone. I'm telling you right now, these people can be openly like racist and say, "Hey, by the way, I'm not even gonna allow someone white to be, interview me," and yet everything's all good, everything's fine. But it's like you flip it the other side, and all of a sudden it's like racism. So I just think that they're projecting everything when they say, racist, bigot, hater. not to get political, but it's just unbelievable to me when you kind of break down everything that they accuse, everything that they say, they yell from the rooftops. It's like if you just start inspecting and looking at it. So, like, I mean, to close up, Chris, the biggest thing is honestly, I think that we just have to just keep loving people, just doing what Christ has commanded us to do, and really be no different, because I just don't think that you can just wake people up by giving them the truth. There's so many people right now that don't want to hear it. You could like literally give them all the facts, and they're like, I don't care. White people are evil. And that's it. It's sad. We're in a very, very critical state in the world, and especially America. It's like, it's really, really bad. And I just think we just got to keep loving people and be ourselves. And you know what? The truth will prevail.
I agree.
Well, that's not how you end, Andre. Come on.
Just say that you disagree.
Johnny disagree?
No, just say you do.
Hit it. No, hit it. I obviously like push.
So what says you, Johnny? You've been quiet for.
Yeah, Johnny, you got to go too. So
no, listen, I just love, like I say, there's a lot of. I mean, you guys are throwing out names of people, and I don't. Robbie always says, "Oh, did you see this on Facebook, or did you check this out on the social?" I'm like, I don't go on any of that stuff. I don't know any of it. So when you guys mention all these names and things that are going on, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I never knew that. Or oh, that's I constantly just try to learn as much as I possibly can, and then kind of just go from there. But I mean, Andre said it earlier, be humble and kind. We say in our household all the time, regardless of who you are, love God, love people. And so there's, the truth, as Robbie said, the truth will prevail. But we just got to recognize that there is the organization, and then there's the movement. And there are some there's the underlying thing of, people have a second agenda, and then there's other people who really just want to see change happen.
And Chris, real quick, and I'll keep this short though, there are a lot of people, a lot of minorities that are waking up to the lies of the progressive, communist, Marxist left. You know what I mean?
Andre's one of them.
Yeah, but you're seeing it in the numbers. I mean, there's no doubt. And that's why they're so terrified. I could use Trump or DeSantis or whatever, but I'm talking about the new kind of, really, really strong saying, look, man, all this stuff is toxic and cancer. There's a lot of people waking up and saying, look, man, I don't think anyone wants to live in America or any country that's this twisted and this way off. No one wants to think it's a good idea to be like, hey, let's segregate the children. Let's put the white people over here. Let's put the black people over here and think that is good. Like, I'm just telling you right now, we're not that far off. So I do think that things are getting to a tipping point where they've moved so fast. So the good news is I think a lot of people are starting to wake up going, whoa. We were okay with a little bit of this, but it has gone so far off where they're literally castrating children now and doing operations, and they're doing the most sick and twisted stuff. So I think there's going to be a big pendulum shift going to the other side. So for me, I hold hope in the fact that I think you're going to see a lot of people where truth prevails. They're like, you know what? This was all nonsense. Of course I'm not racist in my heart. I love people. And honestly, I don't care what color you are. I judge you by the character, not of the color of your skin.
Let me say something real quick. I just kind of use this as my little soapbox. One thing that I tell people, that as a black man, that there is a fear amongst us to step aside and to try to really get a voice out. With me, I have maybe, 2 or 3 people that are like, cool, Dre, coolest concept. But you push where you start getting millions, and then you start messing with their agenda, you're going to disappear. That's just my theory, but just looking at history, look at Dr. King, look at Malcolm X, you will disappear. And then also too, Bob Marley. They talked about the CIA. He goes in there, what a cut on his toe. He walks out with cancers and ends up dying. Because they want everybody to be the feeble-minded, just mindless sheep out there, just, okay, that's what you want us to do. They don't want people to rise above. And then we see the BS. Being like, stick with I saw something pop up. What Robbie was saying, there was a time, I believe, black and white, we were starting to gel, get together, and form, and then all this BS came up. Because they don't want to see black and white tight. They don't want to see that. because you know why? Because then there'll be no more Republicans and there'll be no more Democrats, because people were like, why do we need them? We need a working man's party to get out there and take care, and just everybody's an even keel. They don't want that. So, but like we were saying, just live and let live. Just be friend, just be
Divide and
kind
conquer,
to
man.
people.
Yes, it's divide and conquer. That's all it is. It's true and tried and tested for as long as history is. I mean, they've done this forever, and that's all they're trying to do right now is divide and conquer. They know that as long as we're fighting with one another, we're not looking at the real enemy. If we all woke up, banded together, and said, "Hey, man, you know, we all have more in common," and it's like these guys are the ones that are trying to destroy us. Hey,
Yep.
let's come together. Let's fight the real enemy. So yeah, it's class sometimes, like the rich and the poor, or it's race, but they have done this for centuries. For centuries, it is nothing new. Nothing new happens under the sun, like Ecclesiastes says.
I mean, I want to answer Karen's question. How can we redirect the next generation so they aren't swayed by the narrative? I don't think we can anymore. I think with the way that the schools and the education system has taken this on like gangbusters, I think it's left to those in the home and left to try to salvage your own personal kids and make sure that they are aware of what biblical principles are, what even our when people talk about our country being racist, they don't actually know the actual history of the Declaration of Independence. They don't know how many different copies there were because the South fought with the actual founders. It's so you have to go back to educating yourself and learning your actual history and learning your biblical principles straight up. I think at least the next couple generations, as far as those that are unsaved, even the saved, we have an issue, but the ones that are unsaved, it's going to be very hard to reel them in to understand biblical principles, because God is just a figment of an imagination now. It's no longer, preachable. It's no longer teachable. I mean, I'm not that far removed from getting my education at one of the most liberal colleges in the country. And I graduated in 2017, and I had to spend actually a half a day talking to a girl that grew up in the church, that she isn't wrong for what she believes, because the world history professor taught that Jesus was a figment. Jesus was a lie. Jesus wasn't a real person. And, she started crying in class. And so I had to reel her in. Whether she stuck to it or not, I don't know. But another comment was made about the police and the KKK. That's pre 1990. The KKK couldn't infiltrate a bologna sandwich these days. So that's pretty much. I don't see them infiltrating.
Does anyone know, just offhand, how many there are of like literally KKK or like absolutely insane white supremacists? Like they throw that word around like insane, like patriots, Christians, white people. Everyone's like, these white supremacists. But really, truly, does anyone know the numbers we're talking in?
Wasn't it like 4,000?
No, it was around. I think it was between 4,000 to 6,000 before Trump. And then,
do you realize how ridiculous that is based on what 320 million people in America?
And then I think it's 10 plus now,
like
1,000.
Is that like one per city? Is that like one like?
But I will tell you this: there are more sects of Black Hebrew Israelites than there are Ku Klux Klan members who do believe that the white Edomites should be killed. They do believe this, and so that is a fundamental belief of fundamentalism Black Hebrew Israelite. Not all Black Hebrew Israelites believe that, but it is the case.
No, for sure. They
Yeah.
exist, but what I'm saying is, I don't know. Somebody do the math on that. That's a fraction of like one. Like I mean, 6,000 people. What 340 million people live in America? Like that is like 0.000. Like you've got better odds. I think COVID's more deadly than that odd. You know, like it's insane.
And Robbie, you have 400,000 cops patrolling
Yeah,
the streets, and that's FBI, that's DEA, that's your local city cops, and
we have 87,000 new IRS agents on the way. So.
Yeah, armed to the teeth. Yeah, I know, it's insane. Like these news headlines every day, and you're just kind of rolling your eyes, like, my goodness, man. Like, yeah, like I said, hopefully we're at a tipping point where people just like it just snaps, because I'll tell you, it's a runaway train at this point. I don't know how zany and how crazy it can get on all fronts, whether it's LGBT, racism, BLM, Antifa. I just think that we're looking at the most extreme examples we're about to see over the next 5-10 years if something's not done.
Robbie, quit daring them to do more weird things. I mean,
well, so here's what I want to say, and then Johnny, if you got anything to end the show with.
Why me?
They're making you talk.
Everybody else gave their soapbox moment. So here goes mine. So I'll keep this short. But so when Yeshua was talking about the Sadducees and Pharisees, he actually told them, listen to everything they say, but don't do as they do, for they don't even keep the law. So they don't even do what they say. But they were saying good things. I'm going to reverse that. So there's this individual who has done great things. And he has said some things and has done some songs and has an ideology that is very pro BLM. And so I'm going to bring it back to, our point of our show, Christian music. That individual is Toby Mac. So Toby Mac has always been very all about racial harmonization. And for this, we say somebody took that mantle and ran with it, and it was him. From his early days of DC Talk and what they were trying to break down the doors. So let me say this. He has a song called I'm Sorry. And I know that song, has a broader realm to it. But let me say this. What does Toby Mac have to be sorry for? He, out of everybody, has nothing to be sorry for. This individual, broke down the barriers within Christian hip hop, even though he wasn't Christian hip hop, as we debated many times on this show. Broken down those barriers so that black artists now were in front of white churches within the Christian world to have careers. We're talking about some of those early groups, ETW, some of these groups that were signed on Forefront, some of the PID, some of these things that they opened for DC Talk. They broke down some of those doors. He started Goatee Records. He employed and brought on Grits, Notaverbs, Out of Eden. He bring urban music to white communities. He was unapologetic about this. He knew this was how we cure racial divide, by showing each other our unique differences and our unique similarities and our oneness within Christ. He knew this. He believed this. He created a band called the Goatee Brothers. It was all about erasing racism. It was at the point of the album. Toby created a group when he went solo called Diverse City. Every single action, every single move that he did wasn't about patronizing a group of people. It was all about an inclusion of people. It was including God's people all under one umbrella. Do as he does. You know, when he sings these songs that he says he's sorry about, of things that he has never partaken in and things that he is not a part of, you know, that he may believe in things like critical race theory or white privilege, or the things that he has a stipulation of. You know, he has been a great example of erasing racism within Christianity, within the constructs of the world. And he's done a wonderful job at setting an example of that. And so how do we you know, do that in our lives, is that we are diverse. We are willing to listen to the next person talk. We're willing to hear their stories. We're willing to befriend them, to love them, to include them, not as based on their skin color, but because of who they are. And so, you know, kudos to him for what he's done. All the while, he has put out these things to patronize and to pander to woke Christianity. And thus, we must remove ourselves from those things. And so, do as he's done, but don't do as he says.
Johnny.
Perfect way to close the show.
Wow, that was good. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
Oh no, you're closing it, Johnny.
Am I?
We got 4 minutes left, bro.
All right.
We don't put you on the spot.
In the late 1800s, early 1900s, you could go up to somebody and you can go to the doctor and you can say, that person over there is crazy. And they can bring them into an insane asylum and they would put them there because of the words that you had said. However, at one point in time, a doctor would go into a closet where there was a tap, a bucket, a mop, and they would let the water overflow. After 5 or 10 minutes, the doctor would come back. If the person was there trying to mop up the water, they would be thrown into the insane asylum. If they shut off the tap, they would know that they weren't crazy. Sometimes the easy answers are the ones that are right in front of you. And as Andre had said earlier, we need to build each other up and hold each other accountable. Sometimes it's the easy things, even though they seem difficult.
Wow. Thank you, John.
Boom. Yeah.
Boom.
All right. I think that's it, guys. I mean, we don't have hardly any answers, but we had a lot of fun doing this. So.
Hey, I just wanted to say, Andre said, I'm only going to do an hour. I don't think he realizes that he's been on for 2 hours.
Yeah, I've been looking at the time up here, and I'm just like, it's just one of those things that I couldn't step away. You know, I'm ready to go to bed, but I'm like, nah. I gotta. This is interesting. I want to get my voice out. And thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it. Good time.
Yeah, we value you. Yeah, really appreciate you coming on, giving your perspective. Really appreciate it.
And I wanted to say that I tried to get somebody on, a musician, a friend of mine, and he was afraid to come on due to pressures of what his wife does for a living and where she does it at. And to me, that's sad that you can't have a conversation about things you may believe, things you may disagree with, or, and I just wish that he was able to be a part of it tonight. So I think
it's the idea that when it comes to these topics, it's going to be nothing but violent outbursts and fighting. And I don't think people really realize that you can sit down and just have a discussion. Even if someone's on the opposite end of the spectrum, you can have this discussion. It's just unfortunate that most people don't want to sit down and have that discussion anymore if they're on the other side of the debate.
Well, that's why I invited Andre to the party, because at one point he was the guy that sat on the other side. And he's seeing the light, but the reality is that we have gotten into some pretty deep down, knockdown, drag out fights back in the day. But the reality is that we were able to talk it through, and no one does that anymore. And
And
I think that's
and by the way, everybody wanted to know what your sign said in the back, Andre.
uh-oh.
Oh, LBGT, Liberty, guns, beer, and I had to censor the end of it, so it just says Trump 2024. So
Awesome.
I guess we can only guess what it originally.
Tacos is what
Oh yeah, I love me some taco.
Um,
All right.
I could say a joke there, but I think we would get censored by
Just
our own
leave.
people, and I think
leave.
we're just gonna leave on that one. So.
out.
All right.
All right. Well, hey, everybody, thanks so much for being here. We took a break from our normal music shows to kind of hit some of these things that were happening, which reflected on our first episode. And so we're going to be getting back into some music, maybe some things like similar to our faith episode that we did, but dealing with maybe some new music that we won't get censored if we play it. So we got some fun stuff coming up for you guys. So stay tuned. This has been Take on the World TV, and you have been watching Johnny.
Well, I love you.
No, come on, no, sound off. You gotta, and then you can say I love you.
No, that's no. You do that, and then I do my thing.
Okay. So you guys have been watching Sound Off.
All right, bye everybody. Love you. Come on, dog.
See you guys.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. everyone. Good night. Blessings.
Good night.
The breath in my lungs just can't hold me. No man. Start a revolution with no man control. I'm gonna start a revolution with the breath in my lungs. Sound off.